Alright, so we're going to learn something new today. So this is exactly where I left the example from the last video. We're going to talk about the else statement. Okay, so picking up where we left off last time, let's just review this real quick. This part right here. So we type in a value for x. These conditions right here, this condition is the exact opposite of this condition. If this one's false, this one's going to be true. It just happened to work out that way. I could have changed this to make it like 6 or 7, but in the example I have right now, it happens to be the exact opposite. So in situations like this, if I run this, let me go ahead and run it. I type in 5. This part's true. As we can see, this number is average valued. It prints out this line, not this one. But this one happens to be false. But it's still, the program is still going to check it. Now it happens so fast that we don't see it, but it does still checks it. Now what we can do instead, and this is where I'm gonna, this is the part where it's gonna be new. We can turn this to else. Okay. What does this do? So we have else right here. Okay. If this turns out to be false, okay, this is gonna automatically execute. If I run this, and I type in 1, let me type in number 1. This number is not average value. If this portion happens to be false, then this entire block of code will be executed. That's what an else is. So you can't have an else. Let's say I delete this. You can't have an else without an if. So immediately after an if can go an else, and that's optional, as we can see, because we haven't used it before. Do you remember when I said the if statement is it's directly applied to either the block of code, the very next block of code, which is this one, or the next program statement. Let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of this block of code. Now the if statement is applied to just this program statement because we only got one statement. It's the same thing with the else. The else portion is applied to the very next block of code or the very next program statement. Here, let me just do this. Let me just cram this together so you can see. Okay, I'm going to delete. And the white space doesn't matter unless you just combine it together like that, and then it doesn't recognize it. You need at least one white space character. It can be an enter, it can be a tab, it can be 10 enters. And same thing up here. So if else, this will happen. If all this is true, this will happen. Otherwise, this is going to happen. And that's how the else statement works. It has the same properties. Here, let me go ahead and run that to show you. It has the same properties as the if statement. It's applied to the very next program statement or block of code. Typically, like 95% of the time, you're going to see this in blocks of code. Let's say I type in 6. This number is average valued because this portion is true. The else portion doesn't get executed, so only one or the other will get executed. Alright, so let's make one 11. Type in 11. This number is not average value. This portion, because this became false, this got skipped, and this got executed. So if else is very common. We're going to talk more about the if-else statement in the next video. We're going to talk about embedded if statements, or a chain of if statements, if-else statements. But this is just the gist of it. And let me undo what I had. But you're going to typically see it in blocks of code. You know, I like to have my the last block line up with the letter so I can see where it actually pairs up to. You know, I used to like doing it this way. That way all the brackets are matched, but I didn't like having this have its own line of code. And when I already have one, it takes up more space, but it might look better for you. But me, I just prefer to have it like this. This is applied to this because this bracket lines up with this if. Alright, I'm starting to babble on, but let me go ahead and stop right there, and we're going to talk a little bit more in the next video of a chain of if statements. Thank you for watching. I can't wait to make the next video.